Nancy Drew, Mystery of the 6½ Keys. Chapter 22. Gee, I wonder who set up this long and complicated puzzle to give me one of the keys, Nancy said. Didn't Radek say you have to be the president of the Czech Republic in order to get one? I should really tell someone that the president was robbed. Nancy shrugged. Surely the key would be explained when the mystery was solved. No way would a major plot element like that be overlooked. Hey, Nancy, Radek called as she went through the courtyard. Want to chat about Residente for a few minutes? No, Nancy called back. I've got to call my boyfriend, who is way better looking than you are. Why would you feel the need to bring that up? Radek whimpered sadly. Nancy returned to her hotel room where she had a lovely dinner at an overpriced restaurant and went to sleep. At 3:15 a.m. in the morning, she was awoken by a text from Adela. Nancy, dude, that translation is like so simple. You should have just used an online translator. It says I hid the 6½ blueprints in 3 different places, solve my riddles to find them. And you don't even have to bother, brah. I solved the riddles myself. They're totally candle, suit of armor, and time. Didn't you say you already found blueprints in a suit of armor? Dude? Nancy turned off her phone and went back to sleep. The next morning, she got ready to solve the alchemist's clever riddles. Clearly, candles referred to the candle display near Leo's office. She went there and stared at it. There are letters on this display case. Definitely a puzzle, Nancy said. She stared at the puzzle. So, now what? Nancy asked. Am I supposed to spell out a word or something? Am I supposed to light the candles? Nancy messaged Adela, asking if there was a specific word she needed to spell out. Adela didn't respond, which was unhelpful. To the left of the candles was a slot adorned with the alchemy symbol for copper. The alchemist intended for someone to see the symbol, then activate the puzzle using one of the copper coins from the lab. Sadly, Nancy wasn't symbol-minded. She thought it was just some weird design. Open! 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 Nancy said, hitting the candle display. There was clearly a secret drawer built into the desk. It was a different color than the rest of the desk. Nancy pulled on it, but it wouldn't open. Nancy reached into her purse and pulled out her ever-useful crowbar. Jamming it in between the desk and the drawer, she pulled with all her might until the drawer fell off. Nancy smiled as she bent down and picked up the now-broken drawer. There were blueprints inside. 2 riddles down, 1 to go. For a moment, Nancy considered she didn't have to solve the last riddle. She already had most of the blueprints. She could easily destroy the blueprints now, forever spoiling the culprit's plan to recreate the 6½ keys from the original blueprints. But that wouldn't be very interesting now, would it? No, she's gotta find that last set of blueprints. The last riddle was time, which clearly referred to the clock inside the cafe. Nancy ran into the cafe, ready to smash it to pieces with her crowbar, but Patricia stopped her. Nancy wasn't sure what time and date to set the clock to. She tried messaging Ned for help. He responded with a 5-page lecture on the history of the Prague astronomical clock. Nancy... okay. The last riddle was time, which clearly referred to the clock inside the cafe. Nancy ran into the cafe, ready to smash it to pieces with her crowbar, but Patricia stopped her. Nancy wasn't sure what time and date to set the clock to. She tried messaging Ned for help. He responded with a 5-page lecture on the history of the Prague astronomical clock. Nancy responded with a picture of Homer Simpson yelling, "Nerd!" Nancy saw the bottom of the clock had something about King Rudolph II's coronation on it. She tried looking it up online, but all she got were weird clickbait articles about Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer catching coronavirus. Only one thing can help me now, gullible tourists, Nancy said. She made a sign that said, "Clock Challenge! Set this model clock to the correct date and time! Win a free snow globe!" She slipped the clock into her purse and set up the challenge in the courtyard, directly in front of the real Prague astronomical clock. Sure enough, plenty of tourists tried their hands at the puzzle, Before the hour was over, Nancy had the next set of blueprints, and one lucky tourist had a 500-year-old snow globe. Chapter 23. Okay, so maybe I rushed through Nancy solving those puzzles. Whatever, those puzzles are not fun to solve. Now that I have all the blueprints, I should make the keys, Nancy said. Then I have to close my eyes and hope really, really hard that the culprit doesn't steal the keys to the treasure like they did the last 10 times I did something like this. Nancy had no idea how to forget keys. Forge keys, not forget. Fuck. Chapter 23. Now that I have all the blueprints, I should make the keys, Nancy said. Then I have to close my eyes and hope really, really hard that the culprit doesn't steal the keys to the treasure like they did the last 10 times I did something like this. Nancy had no idea how to forge keys. She thought about looking it up when her phone started playing, "It's Gonna Be Me." Recognizing Ned's ringtone, she instantly answered. "Nancy, I'm sorry," Ned said. I wish I had better news." "Oh my God! Did my dad die from a heart attack?" Nancy asked. "No," Ned said. "Was it a stroke, an aneurysm? Did he get hit by a car driven by the same terrorist who killed my mother?" Nancy asked. She knew she should have identified the terrorist during her case in Scotland, but she'd gotten too distracted by bagpipes and playing cards. "Your dad is still alive," Ned said loudly. "Then what's the bad news?" Nancy asked. "Hans is no longer a suspect," Ned said. "Your dad and I cleared him of all suspicion. His business is definitely legitimate." Nancy paused for a moment. "Who?" she asked. "Hans Farsinger of Secondshine?" Ned said. You wanted me to investigate him?" "All right, Nancy said. "Sorry, the case has moved on a lot since then. Now I'm trying to stop thieves from stealing the crown jewels of Prague." "That sounds dangerous," Ned said. "You don't know the half of it," Nancy said. "I've traveled through creepy old tunnels. I've been forced to write a puppet show that didn't include Kermit the Frog. And I was chased by an evil ghost knight." "An evil ghost knight?" Ned gasped. "He's chased me all over Prague," Nancy exaggerated. "It's like he always knows where I am at every second of the day." "Did someone put a tracker on your phone, maybe?" Ned asked. "Maybe," Nancy said. "My phone did get hacked yesterday. Maybe this is part of a leftover virus or something." "You should send your phone to a repair shop," Ned said, "or leave it in your hotel room so the ghost can't follow you anymore." "Or I can use it as bait in a trap," Nancy said enthusiastically. "I put my phone in a secluded area, I wait until the villain shows up, then I bust out my fighting moves and kick some butt. It'll be dangerous because I can't call for backup, but I think it'll work. Thanks, Ned." "No, wait, at least ask Adela to help watch," Ned started to say, but it was too late. Nancy hung up on him so she could start Operation Culprit Capture. But where could she do it? She considered using the secluded construction area on the far side of the square, but that didn't make sense. The culprit would have to walk all the way across a large square in full costume to reach that area. No, she needed an indoor location, somewhere that no one would want to go to. "Zloty Jewelers," Nancy said. "Vladena's such a jerk, she never gets customers." Conveniently, there was nobody inside the store that day. Not even Vladena. Nancy wondered why Vladena left her store open and unattended, but she considered that Oscar, Radek, Patricia, and Elka all did the same thing. Maybe it was a Prague thing. Nancy set up a group of cardboard boxes around the door. "Empty boxes are an inescapable trap," she said. She locked the door and propped it open in such a way that when the culprit entered, the locked door would close behind them, cutting off the exit. It was nighttime before the culprit arrived. Nancy thought it was incredibly rude of the culprit to make her wait hours and hours. What, did the culprit have a day job or something? If Nancy had known the culprit would take so long, she would have spent the day having fun in Prague, doing tourist stuff on Adela's dime. The doorknob rattled ominously as the skeleton knight slowly opened it. Nancy could hear his heavy breathing as he stepped into the store, clouds of smoke emanating from his body. "Boo!" Nancy yelled. The culprit jumped and accidentally fell backwards on the door. He quickly got up and panicked, seeing there were boxes on the floor in front of him, with a locked door behind him. "You're trapped," Nancy said confidently. "Now take off the mask. It's time to see who this skeleton knight really is." The knight slumped over in defeat. He lifted up his hands and pulled off the mask, revealing a familiar face. "It's Radek, the creepy puppet master! Or should I say, Radek the Lukaji?" Nancy said. She was happy for a chance to show off she knew Lukaji was Czech for puppet master, since this was almost certainly the only time in her life that information would ever come in handy. "You know about Lukaji's blackmail too?" Radek asked. "You really are the world's greatest detective, Nancy Drew." "Darn tootin'," Nancy said. She smiled in satisfaction, then paused. "Wait, what blackmail?" Chapter 24. "Lukaji is blackmailing me," Radek explained. "They wanted me to dress up in this costume and chase you so you'd solve the mystery faster." "How is bringing a random monster into the mix supposed to get me to solve the mystery faster?" Nancy complained. "That makes no sense." "I don't make the decisions, I just follow orders," Radek said. "I get the sense that Lukaji is getting desperate, because the Crown Jewels exhibit opens this weekend. They don't have a lot of time left to get the blueprints." "I already found the blueprints this morning," Nancy said. "Guess I solved the mystery sooner than you expected." "What do you want with these blueprints?" "I've been ordered to steal them from you," Radek admitted. "I freaking knew it!" Nancy cried. "Well, you can tell Lukaji to kiss my big fat—" Nancy was interrupted by the arrival of Merrick. "What's going on in here?" Merrick asked. "Oops," Nancy said. When making her trap, she had forgotten that there were 2 doors to the building. Good thing Radek had entered through the booby-trapped one. "Nancy captured me, so I'm confessing everything," Radek said. "What else could I do?" Nancy pondered that for a second. How else could this culprit confrontation have gone? "You'd better start telling me why you're here," Nancy said. "I'm sorry, I didn't want to hurt you," Radek said. "That has nothing to do with what I just said," Nancy pointed out. "Why were you following me?" "I can't explain now, okay? We should get out of here," Radek said. "Why?" Nancy asked. "Look, I'm not the only one who knows where we are," Radek said. "That is the 3rd time in a row you've completely ignored my question and said something unrelated," Nancy said. "I'm not going to let you get away with that. Tell me why you're here." "I'm sorry. They didn't really give me a choice," Radek said. "Who's they?" Nancy asked. "Are you trying to say you were forced to follow me?" "They sent me the tracking software," Radek said. "I've never needed it before in my work, but I didn't have a choice." "Who's they?" Nancy repeated. "We shouldn't discuss this here. Let's go back to Apparat," Radek said. "Quit ignoring my questions!" Nancy screamed. Yes, it would have been far more frustrating if Radek and Merrick had spent 7 minutes ignoring Nancy and talking about unrelated things. Good thing they were being direct and straightforward in their confession. In case you didn't get the joke, that's all stuff that Radek says during the scene in the game. In the actual game, he is annoyingly off topic. Nancy snapped out of her daydream in time to hear Merrick mumble something about his dead daughter. "Okay, I definitely heard everything you said, but just for the sake of thoroughness, maybe you should explain it all from the beginning again, like I'm hearing it for the first time," Nancy said. "I was just explaining that you have the blueprints that Lukaji wants," Radek said. "I'm supposed to steal them from you." "And I'm supposed to use them to make the 7 keys," Merrick said. "After that, I give them to Lukaji in a dead drop at the statue. Once that's done, Lukaji promises to give up the blackmail." "They must have some pretty serious blackmail material on you, if you're willing to go this far," Nancy said. "What do they have on you? Are you part of an underground crime league or something?" They have an embarrassing photo of us at a Christmas party together, Radix said. Merrick dared me to kiss one of my puppets because I've never had a girlfriend, and, things got weird from there. Ah, Nancy said. Well, the way I see it, we have two choices. You can mess up the keys on purpose so Lukaji can't steal the crown jewels, or you can put a tracker in the keys so I can secretly follow them and catch the real culprit red-handed. Weeks later, Nancy would realize that using a tracker wasn't that great of an idea. She knew where the culprit would take the 7 keys, to the door of the vault with the crown jewels. Nancy could have just gone there directly with the police and waited for the culprit to appear. That would have been much easier than bringing a tracker into the mix. But alas, Nancy didn't think of that until later. She was forced to use Merrick's old-fashioned tracking device. It didn't work very well. Nancy was forced to wander around in circles saying, "Is it here? Is it here? Is it here?" until she found the correct coordinates. Once she found one set of coordinates, she had to find the next one, then the next one, and so on. It took her about an hour to reach the final set of coordinates, which were at the entrance to the alchemy lab. "Oh, come on!" Nancy complained. "I already knew where the secret alchemy lab was located. Why didn't Merrick send me this coordinate first, instead of wasting all my time with the others?" Grumbling, Nancy entered the alchemy lab, where she came face to face with the culprit. It was Vladena Zloty! Author's note: pretend to be surprised who the culprit is, even though you probably knew it already.